Hello again, glad you could join us. As always, we are joined by Greg Engert, beer director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, which includes such places as where we are, Church Key, downstairs, of course, Birch and Barley. Greg, the one and only beer director to be named a Sommelier of the Year by Food and Wine. What's on tap this week?
So, as we were discussing earlier, we are in the midst of our first DC heat wave. So as I was coming in this morning and thinking about what beer I wanted to kind of talk about this week, it was largely determined by the weather.
Excellent.
But luckily, we have a brand new beer from New Belgium out called Tart Lychee in their Lips of Faith series that is pretty much the perfect beer for these hot, sticky, humid, muggy days. So Tart Lychee is what we're tasting today. Lips of Faith is their occasional series. La Folie we've talked about before. It comes out occasionally throughout the year. One-offs, very limited batch, but this is out now, so you'll be able to find it around town. The cool thing is that New Belgium, in addition to making wonderful Belgian-inspired ales, they make great crisp, refreshing beers, hoppy beers. They make it all, but they also have a huge barrel storage facility. And Lauren Salazar is the master blender there, and she does amazing stuff. She maintains and takes care of all the aging soured beers as they're aging in oak. And they have two major kind of strains. They have a sour brown ale they age in oak, and they call that Oscar. That's what they use to make La Folie. They use it to make Clutch. But then they have a pale blonde ale that's soured, aging in oak, and they call that Felix, fittingly. So this beer is comprised of Felix and a base Belgian-style ale. So the idea came when Lauren was thinking about lychee fruit. Lychee fruit is delicious, but it's really, really sweet. Most fruit actually has a good acidity. Lychee is very sweet. So to make a beer with lychee, you need something to counterbalance that. So the first thing they did was brew this kind of Belgian-style ale with lychee fruit, balanced with cinnamon sticks. Then, in order to make sure that the sweetness still wouldn't overwhelm, they blended it with some of the soured Felix ale. And in the end, actually, this beer is more Felix, more sour ale, than it is lychee cinnamon stick ale. It's about 56% of the soured Felix and 44% lychee cinnamon ale.
What do these ideas for these beers come to these guys in the middle of the night? Or I mean, it's amazing the complex combination of ingredients in some of these.
Well, I think the cool thing about it is I think that brewers and people who are involved in the industry are thinking about these things all the time. It's not it's one of those things. If you love your job, you're always at work. You know, so I think they're thinking about it all the time. And I think the other thing is that it's all about flavor. So you can be inspired by so much more than just beer. Wine, acidity can inspire you, spirits, cocktails, and just anything culinary, like food. So if you're thinking about balance the same way a chef would, that's how these blenders and brewers think. You know, you start thinking about what are some cool fruits we haven't used yet, and then you think, and why haven't we used it? And then it just all kind of comes naturally from there.
All right. Interesting nose, but appealing.
Oh, it's good. And it's, I mean, it's so refreshing. I should mention that this, to me, it's brewed with a little bit of wheat and a little oat, too. The wheat gives it that light, fresh quality. The oat's a little bit of a silky texture. But the thing is that this beer almost tastes like a Berliner Weiss, a mildly tart wheat beer. The big difference, though, is that this is not 4% or under like a Berliner Weiss, but actually 7.5% alcohol. So it'll sneak up on you pretty quickly. It almost tastes like an imperial sour wheat beer, imperial Berliner Weiss, and it's just an amazing beer.
Some people, when they first look at the label, might be put off by when they see the word tart.
Yeah.
But it's really nicely balanced.
Exactly.
It doesn't make you pucker up at all.
And that is a big thing. I mean, we use a lot of these terms like sour and tart and acidic. I think it's important to think of, when I think of tart, I think of tart, something that's quick, something that's just a brief like twang of acidity. You know, sour, I think of something that's a little bit more intense. So I think tart makes sense here. But yeah, you're right. I mean, somebody's like, I don't like sour beer. They might get away from this, and they shouldn't. They should try it because it really is, it's balanced. There's acidity, there's sweetness from the grain sugars that come through, great fruit qualities, and it has a funky nose. It's kind of rustic, earthy, almost like old world white wine quality.
Now, this would be great all alone on the hammock in a nice breeze under a shady tree, but
ice cold.
What would you match it with for food?
So, yeah, I mean, this is a drinker for the summertime for sure. I think what it's great with is before and after. I mean, this is something that's great just to open up your palate when you're about to eat, but it also works nicely with any kind of salad. Like I think of like really rich kind of like spinach salad or something like that, because it's going to bring the fruit to the salad. It's almost like a very mild vinaigrette, so that works really cool with that. And then also on the tail end, if you want to talk about really great cold desserts for your picnic or something like that, it would be wonderful with that. Just a standard cheesecake, maybe with a little bit of fruit, some ice cream, sorbet. I mean, this with vanilla ice cream would be phenomenal on its own.
Okay. Now, we have mentioned the roasty weather, toasty weather that we've gotten now. Are there tips for people about the best way to store their beer or chill their beer in the summertime? I mean, we know that you're not supposed to take this and stick it in the cooler full of ice.
Right.
But any special concerns in the hot weather?
Well, I mean, I think actually one thing I will say about hot weather is, and it's interesting because I love canned beers, and there's more and more of those out there. One of the great things about canned beer is that aluminum cans are so thin. I think they only weigh like 15 grams, whereas a bottle weighs like, I think almost 350 grams or something, maybe 150 grams. So there's a big distinction there, which means that if you have a can that's not really as cold as you need, and you put it into an ice box or into a refrigerator, it's going to get cold quicker. So that can be convenient here. But cans are also associated with taking them on the go and outside drinking and things like that. So those cans will also get pretty warm pretty quickly because they're just not as insulated. So I would say that in the instance of like canned beer, I'd pack them in with ice, knowing that as soon as you pull them out in 100-degree weather, they're going to come down pretty quickly. Otherwise, it's just kind of you're gonna have to if you're drinking outside, you're gonna have to deal with nature, really.
I went to a salon on canning at Savor a couple weeks ago, and it was fascinating.
Who was doing that one?
Oh, it was, I don't think it was New Belgium. It was Avery was there, and I can't remember the other two, but it was fascinating to listen to them talk. And one thing they mentioned that you should keep in mind is you can fit more cans in the refrigerator. Yeah. So that's a bonus right there, too, along with what you talked about.
And also, it's the other thing about cans that are so great, you can fit more cans when you're shipping them, too. So they weigh less, and there's more of them, so you can actually get a better cost on shipping your beer than you could with bottles.
We have mentioned in recent episodes about the Ask Greg feature if you want to ask Greg a question about beer. I thought I brought some. I'm just going to be upfront and honest. I thought I brought some emails with me on my phone. They don't seem to be there anymore. I'm going to try to find them, and we'll address those in the future. And any question you have, it's it's Beer of the Week at WTOP.com. I'll put the email right down here on the bottom of the screen. Beer of the Week at WTOP.com. Cool. Thank you, Greg, as always.
My pleasure.
We appreciate it. Please do always drink responsibly, and be sure to bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.